Texas.
Mr. President, in Gullivers Travels, Swift told us of two fictional lands, Lilliput and Blefuscu, that had been at war for years over which end of the egg to open first. In Lilliput, they opened the big egg, and in Blefuscu, they opened the small end of the egg. And the big enders and little enders battled endlessly. I am sorry to say that that satirical depiction often reflects what occurs in this august body. We spend a great deal of time arguing about procedural niceties, about motions to commit or not to commit that do not matter to the American people. And all the meantime, we are bankrupting our children and our grandchildren. If I could, I'd like to cut through all of the arguments back and forth, because in my view, most of the arguments are, by design, missing the point of this disagreement. This disagreement is over one issue and one issue only. Can the United States Senate raise our debt limit with only 50 votes? Or does it take 60? Everything else that's being talked about is smoke. It is a side issue. The central fight here is, should the United States Senate be able to raise the debt limit with 50 votes or 60? Now, I will note my friend from Arizona questioned the knowledge of those who are objecting, and he suggested that perhaps our knowledge was lacking because this could not be done. Well, I know my friend from Arizona is a long veteran of this body. And he surely knows that in 1987 and 1990, it was done. This is not a hypothetical. And in 1995 and 2004, it was attempted. It didn't quite get accomplished, but it was attempted. And what occurs under the Budget Act of 1974 is that when a conference report is adopted and reconciliation instructions are sent that raise the debt ceiling, that can then be passed by this body with merely 50 votes. This is all an avenue to allow a debt ceiling increase to be raised with 50 votes. And I know my friend from Arizona is well aware of that because he is such an esteemed historian of this body that he knows not only can it be done, but it has been done. And we don't need to hypothesize over whether that's what this is about, because for 62 days, we have asked the majority leader, simply say, we won't use this as a procedural trick to raise the debt ceiling with 50 votes, and we can go to conference. And for 62 days, the majority leader has said, no, I will not do that, I will not do that. And those protestations make absolutely clear what this is about. Mr. President, I think on both sides of the chambers, there are different things at work. On the Democratic side of the chamber, President Obama has been very explicit. He wants to raise the debt limit, and he has said he wants no debate about it. He's unwilling to debate. He wants to shut down the discussion. He simply wants a blank check. He simply wants an unlimited credit card to keep digging the debt hole this nation is in deeper and deeper and deeper. And he said this publicly, repeatedly from the White House. And what our friends, the Democrats, are doing is standing shoulder to shoulder with the Democrat president in fighting to enable the United States Senate to raise the debt limit with just 50 votes, which means, if that happens, that would then allow the 55-member Democratic majority to vote to do so without listening to a word from the minority. That's what this fight is about. There's no other issue being contested here. But what's happening on the Republican side? Well, some have suggested we ought to just have a motion to instruct. Now, the problem with a motion to instruct is a motion to instruct is non-binding. So it's a purely symbolic gesture. But even a motion to instruct not to raise the debt ceiling would lose. Why? Because there are 55 Democrats, and the 55 Democrats would vote against it. And here's the dirty little secret about some of those on the right side of the aisle. There are some secrets about some of those on the right side of the aisle. There are some who would very much like to cast a symbolic vote against raising the debt ceiling. and nonetheless to allow our friends on the left side of the aisle to raise the debt ceiling. That, to some Republicans, is the ideal outcome because they can go to their constituents and say, see, I voted no, and yet at the same time, wonderfully, they lost, and they didn't actually have to stand up and stop what was happening. And so that is an outcome I believe that there are some on this side of the aisle who desire. Now, I do feel obliged to rise in defense of my colleagues, the Republicans, because the senior senator from Arizona has impugned the Republicans by claiming repeatedly that it is only a minority of Republicans who are opposed to raising the debt ceiling on just 50 votes. And he has repeatedly suggested on the floor of the Senate that, in fact, it may be a small minority, that the overwhelming majority of Republicans, the senior senator from Arizona said, stand with Harry Reid in wanting to be able to raise the debt ceiling on 50 votes. Let me suggest to the senior senator from Arizona that, number one, in saying that, he is impugning all 45 Republicans in this body. But number two, it has been suggested that those of us who are fighting to defend liberty, fighting to turn around the out-of-control spending and out-of-control debt in this country, fighting to defend the Constitution, it has been suggested that we are wacko birds. Well, if that is the case, I will suggest to my friend from Arizona, there may be more wacko birds in the Senate than is suspected. Indeed, I would encourage my friend, the senior senator from Arizona, that if he were to circulate to Republicans a simple statement that said, we, the undersigned Republican senators, hereby state that we support giving Harry Reid and the Democrats the ability to raise the debt ceiling with 50 votes instead of 60. I believe he will find that his representation to this body, that it is only a minority of Republicans that oppose that, is not accurate. This issue gets obscured by the procedural complexities, and that's not by accident. Washington is very good at speaking doublespeak that make the citizens' eyes glaze over. But at its heart, it's very, very simple. Majority Leader Reid and the Democrats want to raise the debt ceiling. They have stated they want to raise the debt ceiling. And they want to do so consistent with President Obama's instructions, to do so without debate, because he doesn't want to debate this issue, without conditions, without anything to fix our out-of-control spending, our out-of-control debt. Simply give him an additional blank credit card, because going from $10 trillion to $17 trillion has not been enough. That is the desire of the Democrats, and it is candid. We could go to conference right now today if the Democrats would simply say, we won't raise the debt ceiling with just using 50 votes. We will debate it on the floor with a 60-vote threshold and actually be forced to find some bipartisan agreement. But that's not what the majority wants to do. And those who are arguing that Republicans should accede to that demand are arguing that all of us who have told our constituents, we're going to fight to solve this economic problem, we're going to fight to stop this out-of-control spending, we're going to fight to stop bankrupting our kids, that those promises are hollow. Those are just what we tell constituents at home. That's not actually what we do when we're on the floor of the Senate. I would note, indeed, that when the senior senator from Arizona said it is only a small minority that believes this on the Republican side, if my friend, the senior senator, is able to produce a written letter with the signature of a majority of Republicans, I will offer here and now to go to a home game of my Houston Astros wearing an Arizona Diamondback hat. And I can guarantee you in Houston that will not be well received, but yet I stand in complete comfort that I will not find myself in that situation, because I don't believe it's right that a majority of the Republicans in this body have given up the fight on spending, have given up the fight on reining in out-of-control, Washington, bipartisan spending, deficits, and debt. I believe we are seeing leadership in this body stand together to fix the problem. That is what the American people want. So let me say this in closing. It's easy to get confused by all of the procedural discussions back and forth. This issue is about one issue alone. Should Majority Leader Harry Reid be able to raise the debt limit, an unlimited amount, with just 50 votes? Or should it require 60? If it requires 60, there will have to be some positive steps made to fix the problem. If it's just 50, the Majority Leader has the votes right now today to write a blank check for the federal debt. That's the issue, and I think the American people are not conflicted in the answer to that issue. The American people want us to fix the problem and stop digging the debt hole deeper and deeper, stop putting our kids and grandkids on the path to Greece. And I am proud that so many senators are standing here working very hard to honor our commitments to our constituents, because that's exactly what our job is. I yield the floor.